So I was just watching a video in which the World Bank, I don't know her exact title, was a big high-level lawyer, something of that nature. She's the one, I think her name is Karen whatever, something, you probably heard of her recently. She was on Russia Today news channel, and she was talking about the massive, unbelievable, unfathomable corruption from the IMF and World Bank, which is basically kind of the same entity. And her duty was to make sure the books were right, make sure there was no fraud, no money laundering, you name it, and make sure everything's kosher. And she started giving some examples. One of the examples was that a bank in the Philippines, I think she said, or was it Thailand? It's either the Philippines or Thailand. The owner of the bank had a bad loan or something that went south, and he ended up using $900 million, was it? $900 million that was supposed to be raised basically for... She said, you got to understand, the World Bank and IMF are organizations that were put together, countries around the earth, especially the United States, by the way, headquarters of the World Bank, big shot is like over here, to help impoverished countries, poor countries, etc. So she's working there and seeing that there's money actually being sent there for use to help impoverished countries. And she's noticing when she sees where the money's going, it's not going where it's supposed to be going. It is going to a select few corporations, people, for their own use. And in this particular case, the head of this one bank used $900 million to help bail himself out of a bad loan, something or another. And then another company came in to try to help bail out the bank because now the bank got in trouble financially. So another $500 million went in, and when they talked to the shareholders of the bank, none of them discussed that information when they were trying to get some money in there, that $500 million or whatever. So she says that's completely illegal. I mean, they have to know this. And from money laundering, you name it. She said, I'm a whistleblower basically for the United States at the World Bank. She said there's someone just like me that's a representative inside the World Bank for India. There's one in the United Kingdom. There's one over here. There's one over there. There's one in India. There's everywhere. All these countries have their own guys right in there. And she said, we basically have a group of ourselves for all of our own individual countries that we live in that basically they represent and are whistleblowers. So she went on to talk about, because the lady that was interviewing her said, well, can you name names? Can you be real specific on who's doing this? Because she's basically telling them that it's a small group of individual corporations that run everything, and this is where everything stems from. Congress is bought and paid for, presidents bought and paid for, Eric Holder specifically bought and paid for, most of Congress. I mean, just the list goes on. Everything everywhere is just corrupt, and she mentions a currency crisis is coming soon. It's going to start a currency war is what she called it. This is very interesting because you know who used that word, currency wars, well in advance of all this, and that's Lindsey Williams. So keep that in mind as things unfold. She said there's absolutely coming a currency war, and there's going to be major economic problems, major monetary problems. All of the money that was printed by the central banks across the world, she says, was never used for any purpose. She said, you saw who got it, the banks got it, and they're enriching themselves. That's all it's about. And these same banks happen to own all of the mainstream media, TV stations, channels that you like to watch, whether you love CNN or you love MSNBC or you love Fox News or whichever one's your favorite, it does not matter. She says there was a National Institute for Technology of something or another out of, I think, Switzerland. And she said they had all the data from across the world, basically, on corporations, who owns what members of the board, names. They figured out by looking at all the data, who owns what and how they stealthily and very sneakily have been able to own a lot of things that just quickly digging you wouldn't be able to figure out. Like, for example, someone at the member of board or the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, let's just say for an example, she didn't say this, but one of my favorites, Jamie Dimon. Someone like that and members of the board. Well, they're just in the J.P. Morgan, right? That's their company. And then according to the chart that she's saying that they put together, well, no, they also own that company, and that company owns this other subsidiary, and that subsidiary has another subsidiary, and that subsidiary owns a massive size shares in, say, NBC, right? And then another, let's say Goldman Sachs. Same story. Subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary owns massive shares, potentially controlling shares of my text message of, let's say, Fox News, and the same thing. So she says it's just a spider web of all these people. She mentioned some certain growth or money that they're basically taking 40% of like all the world's something type of money. I don't remember. It wasn't like GDP. It wasn't income. It was some other word. And it's 40%. And then she said, and then there's the 60% of the profits created by whatever that they actually own. So she said there's just this really small group. So she said, well, who can you name names? She said it's very simple. All you have to do is find out, for example, and she said this, who runs Goldman Sachs? Who owns and runs Bank of America? Do that for all the big banks, and you will see precisely who I'm talking about, because that's who it is. That's exactly who I'm talking about. So she's saying that, but there's a couple key things she mentioned. And she said the currency crisis is coming, and she says, and again, she don't work there no more. They fired her at the World Bank after blowing the whistle. And she had letters from 3 congressmen who told the World Bank, do not fire this lady. She needs to stay. She's doing her job properly. This needs to be investigated. They fired her. And she says every other whistleblower that even attempted to even look at something like money laundering, before it even got out, you're fired already. You were even talking about money laundering, you are fired. And that's the way they do business. So she says there's going to be some major bank problems coming soon. I believe she said that. And that this currency war is going to ensue. And again, I thought of old Lindsey Williams. And I also thought of gold. And she said, also gold is in backwardization. And and she got cut off. Is it backwardation or backwardization? Whatever. And the lady at Russia Today says, well, talk to me about such and such. So she never got to get back on the topic. But what happens when gold does that, it basically means the spot price of gold is higher than a futures contract or a future price of gold. And again, the paper markets are futures contracts, basically. So when the spot price of gold went higher, the other day it was up $40. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was up $40. Silver was up over $1, like that. And backwardization occurred. So when backwardization occurs, it is when the spot price of gold is higher than the futures price. So that is usually a sign that there are delivery problems with gold. Gold prices should be going way higher. That's a sign. Then there's the GOFO rate, GOFO, regarding gold. And what that means, which this is a new thing that's happened for it was 5 days in a row, 10 days in a row, 11 days in a row, 14 days. It's just continuing. Gold, what is it? The gold something forwarding something rate. What that basically means, in a nutshell, is that it is more advantageous for an investor, and I'm not sure how they do this because I haven't really looked into this. It's something that's kind of a new phenomenon that's normally does not happen. It's basically cheaper, or not cheap. Yeah, it's cheaper to borrow dollars. It's more expensive to borrow gold. So the fee they have to pay to borrow gold actually pays more than dollars. So in other words, it's more advantageous to get your hands on gold because apparently the gold lease rates I'm not talking about the gold price. The gold lease rate, if you will, is higher than what they can do with dollars. And it's all about lending. So that is now for 2 weeks or so straight in a row, gold is outperforming. Again, this is a very rare phenomenon. And we also have it in backwardization, which I just told you about. So if we have those two things, and I know the price of precious metals were down a little bit today. Oh, man. The bankers do not have the gold. They never did. They've been lending it out, taking it from central banks, then lending it out. The gold banks have it. They lend it out. Someone else gets it. They lend it out. And it is a promise on an IOU, on an IOU, on an IOU. And it was only one original IOU. And all the way down the end of the line, that last person thinks they're the last one that has the IOU. As soon as they get it back, everything's fine. But that can't be the case because they borrowed it from somebody else, and that somebody else also borrowed it from somebody else, etc. This is why you are seeing JP Morgan's vault almost empty. This is why gold is in backwardization. This is why gold, the GOFO rate, is favoring gold. So, the bottom line, like I've always told you, this is going to be like the battle of all battles. No matter what price you paid for gold and silver, even let's say, again, I love in the $40 price range. I have silver in my possession right now that I've had since it was in the $40 range, and the $30 range, and the $20 range, and the teens, and even $10 one time when the collapse first occurred. And that was fantastic, let me tell you. I would love to have $10 silver again. But after seeing how things are going right now, it sure does appear that gold and silver have reached a bottom. But considering the fact that they have a paper mechanism that sets the price, you know they can drop it more if they need to. And when they drop the price more, all they're trying to do is send a signal to everybody that you don't want this turd of an asset. It is now deflated. It was in a bubble. It's no good anymore. Stay away. Oh, they want you to stay away. Trust me, because they don't have the gold, and the populations of the earth right now are securing gold and silver like you cannot believe, even though the prices are low. So, another interesting thing I read last night, and I can't remember who it was from, like maybe not Mark Faber, God, I can't remember his name, a guy you'd recognize in the precious metals market news commentary, you know, a good guy. And he was saying the data he's looking at is showing him that JP Morgan, our pal, is actually going long on silver. Now remember, they've been the huge net short this whole time. And he says the data he's looking at, while it wasn't 100, I guess it wasn't like 100%, but it is pretty telltale that it appears JP Morgan might be going long silver, which all that means is now they're betting on the price going up sometime in the future. Doesn't mean he'll be right, but the fact that I'm reading that, I'm seeing all this stuff, I'm sharing it with you guys. I'd like to go get some more silver, let me tell you something. But I already bought the 25 ounces the other day. I bought the 125 or whatever, 6 ounces I told you about. And I even put it on a credit card. Like I said, you can put it on a credit card now and start paying it because it's at a fire sale price right now. And when the price doubles, which ain't gonna, I don't think we're gonna go too much longer, to tell you the truth. I mean, I just can't see it. But when the price doubles, and it will double, you could take half of the silver you bought and then pay off the credit card completely in full and still have half of the silver left. Now me, on the other hand, I will not, let me repeat, I will not be selling silver to pay off anything, including the credit card. I will make my gladly little happy smiley face debt payments to Citigroup or whoever the hell that credit card's through. I think it's Citigroup. One's a Discover card, actually. I'm not sure the other one. I think it's Citigroup. So my wife's Citi card and her Discover card. We'll just make our payments. We'll make more than the low payment. We'll just pay that sucker off in maybe a year, maybe 6 months. I don't know. Maybe sooner. But I will not be selling my precious metals to do that. I'm actually using a tool of the banks, the same banks that are causing all these problems. Most people want to, physically fight the bank. I'm going to go, you want to kick someone's butt or you want to take them to court. You want to make them pay. Start a revolution. Kill them. No. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. all you need is silver in your hands, or gold, but stick with silver. Silver is the modern day gun of the revolution, if you will. Buying physical silver is causing damage, irreparable damage to the banks and their cartel system, which has now turned into their government that they run, which is our government. So you are actually fighting back by buying gold and silver. And I am using the bad guys who's doing this, their credit card that they gave us, to make purchases of any kind you want. Okay, I'm going to go buy some silver. Thank you. Here's that card back. Thank you in full. Matter of fact, appreciate that for the cheap prices, for trying to scare everyone off and allowing me to buy more silver while the prices are cheap. So it's almost as if they handed you the gun of the revolution to fight them with. And that gun, again, is silver. Literally, silver bullion. So I just want to share that with you. Keep stacking. It's only going to get better. It's going to get worse. You know, everything's going to get worse. But precious metals are going to get much better as everything else gets worse. And that is why we get them, so that they can protect us from the times when they get really, really bad financially. Take care.